Hey guys, I'm Nick and welcome back to the channel. Or if you're new here, you know, this thing, sub, ring the bell, you know the drill. So today we're talking about Star Trek Picard, a little bit of news from Akiva Goldsman on how Season 2 is progressing. And I'm going to do a little bit of a video talking about some of the time travel elements of past Star Trek series, more so around Enterprise and Voyager, which relate to the time frame that we know Discovery is jumping to for Season 3. There have been a few episodes involving the Temporal Cold War in Enterprise and a couple of future time ship travel episodes in Voyager as well. And I'm going to speculate as to whether or not these past episodes might play a little bit into the history of Starfleet and the Federation and what we might be seeing in Season 3 of Discovery. So recently, Akiva Goldsman had a bit of a chat with the people at IndieWire and had a little bit to say about how Season 2 is progressing, that they've broken the script for the story arc for Season 2, and he implied that we might be seeing a bit more of Starfleet in Season 2 of Picard. One thing which we didn't really get to see much of at all was the whole Starfleet aspect of Star Trek. We kind of got a glimpse at the end with Riker and the task force coming to save the colony of synths from the attacking Romulan fleet, but we didn't really get a good look in at how Starfleet's kicking on in the era of Picard. So he said we're probably going to see a bit more Starfleet stuff going on in Season 2 of Picard. There was obviously a big tease with the whole armada there at the end of Season 1, and he said it would be just to repay that tease in Season 2. He also commented that although we know now that Data is no more, that Brent Spiner might be making an appearance in Season 2 as the eminent Dr. Alton Inigo Sung. Maybe Picard needs a bit of a tune-up. Maybe his android body is kind of just needing a bit of a service, perhaps. Maybe he has to go back to Sung just to kind of get a bit of a wheel alignment done, maybe just, clean off the spark plugs and refuel the system or something to that effect. So yes, obviously Brent Spiner is great value in whatever role he plays in Star Trek, and it would be good to see him back again in that role. In other Picard news, interviews with some of the other cast recently seem to imply that Jonathan Frakes is eager to put on the uniform again to play Captain Riker in Season 2, so that would be good if we see that again. I think even Marina Sirtis was a little bit envious of Riker putting on the uniform and getting back into space. So there was maybe even a little reference there from Marina Sirtis that she wouldn't be opposed to reprising her role as Deanna Troi in active duty again on board a ship with Will Riker. Who knows, maybe Kestra will tag along as well. Now, with Star Trek Discovery Season 3 coming very soon, we still don't have an air date. It's very frustrating, but we do know a few things about it based on what we've seen in the trailer. So what I'm going to have a bit of a look at in this video primarily today is looking at some of the time travel elements of both Enterprise that kind of involved the Temporal Cold War, and also there's a couple of episodes of Voyager which talked about stuff that was going on in future centuries as well, which might kind of lead us to a bit of a conclusion as to what aspects of this future we might end up seeing in Discovery Season 3, and if those canon plot developments and information will be carried on to Discovery Season 3. Now, we know from the trailer that when Burnham ends up in the 32nd century, going by the number of stars on the Federation flag, and obviously her conversation with Book, him talking about her Starfleet logo on her uniform, that it's sort of a ghost or a remnant of the past, imply that the Federation is a shadow of its former self. Only a couple of centuries before, based on events that have occurred in Voyager with Captain Braxton and the time ship Relativity that were operating out of the 29th century, and also the dealings that Archer had with Daniels in Enterprise. So it seems like that between the 28th and the 31st century, the Federation had a pretty extensive time travel operation going, governed by the Federation, probably a bit like Section 31, but rather than dealing in covert stuff, it's dealing in keeping time travel and time incursions all kind of safely monitored. And this branch seemed to operate for several centuries, right up until at least the 30th century. According to crewman Daniels, as far into the future as the 31st century, time travel was commonplace. I think he even mentioned that school kids and so forth perhaps were doing time travel kind of excursions or something as part of their schoolwork. So if the Federation has imploded or something's happened, it would seem like it's only a relatively recent thing. It's happened recently enough in history that he's aware of it and it's a common knowledge, which means if something's happened, it's probably in the last couple of 100 years, perhaps. Further enough away that it's ancient history, but not so far away that it's not common knowledge amongst people living in the world, which would be the case if it had happened 500 years ago, maybe wouldn't even register a blip. It would be all kind of forgotten about. So it seems like a relatively recent turn of events. So in Voyager and also in Enterprise, we know that Captain Archer sort of briefly visited the 26th century. The Enterprise J was still in service in the Voyager episode, Future's End and Relativity. There were time travelers from the 29th century doing missions and all that sort of thing. They visited the 24th century in that, and that both the Relativity and the Aeon were Federation and, most likely Starfleet vessels operating in this time travel division within Starfleet at that time. Obviously, time travel is one big part of what concluded season 2 of Discovery, and they were under the impression it was a one-way trip. They had the charged up time crystal in the Red Angel suit, and the crew was pretty aware that sending themselves and the Discovery into the future to keep the sphere data away from control was the only way to keep it safe. And they thought it was a one-way trip. However, based on past Star Trek series, Enterprise and Voyager, we know that there's an operating time travel division in Starfleet around this time. Burnham should have been able to access Archer's old captain's logs to discover the existence of this time travel branch, to perhaps be able to enable the Discovery a way to get home after they'd delivered the Discovery and the sphere data to the future. Who knows, maybe they'll arrive in the 32nd century, meet up with the Federation time traveling division and go, oh, yep, no worries, we'll take you guys back home to where you came from, but you can leave the Discovery here and keep that sphere data safe so Control doesn't get it. I'd be very interested to see how they kind of get around these aspects of time travel canon that has played into these past episodes. One other thing I thought could maybe potentially be a reason behind the downfall of the Federation and the somewhat more post-apocalyptic look that Star Trek Discovery Season 3 has. Maybe the series of events that occurred at the end of Picard with the Ubersynths. Somewhere down the track, the beacon was turned on again, and maybe the Ubersynths wiped out a large part of the Federation. Many homeworlds were destroyed, perhaps. So I wonder whether that might play into the plot. I do remember reading something which was talking about vaguely interlinking the shows, so it would certainly make sense. The other thing I want to say for this week, guys, big milestone for the channel, Sci-Fanatics hitting 10,000 subscribers. So thank you everybody for your support over the last year or so of all my videos. And to celebrate the 10,000 subscriber mark, I'm having a sale in my merch store, 15% off all my merchandise until the end of June. So go along, have a look at the merch there. Pick yourself up a t-shirt or a coffee mug or a hoodie or something there. Got some really cool designs with some Star Trek stuff on them that I've designed myself. So be sure to check them out for 15% off all merch in my store there till the end of the month. So what do you guys think about the time travel aspects of Star Trek Enterprise and Star Trek Voyager? Do you think we will get references to these shows in Season 3 of Discovery? Do you think these events that occurred in Enterprise with the Temporal Cold War or with Janeway will register a blip in the history of the Federation, and we might get a passing reference? What do you think? Leave a message in the comments section and let me know your thoughts and how you think they might potentially play into Discovery Season 3. Or do you think all that canon information is going to be completely ignored? Do you think the writers will just not even bother to reference any of that stuff whatsoever. Let me know what you reckon. Please subscribe, like, share, as always, and I'll see you guys next time for my next review.